Just ahead on American Black Journal, the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame gears up for a big celebration of black music, plus a special jazz concert in honor of the Juneteenth holiday. Stay right there. American Black Journal starts now.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support also provided by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation proudly supports 50 years of American Black Journal in covering African American history, culture, and politics. The DTE Foundation and American Black Journal, partners in presenting African American perspectives about our communities and in our world.
For nearly 100 years, Ally has been a part of Detroit, and we give back by volunteering and donating in our community. We have a commitment to diversity and increasing economic mobility in our hometown. At Ally, we're dedicated to doing it right every single day.
And viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to American Black Journal. I'm Stephen Henderson. It's Black Music Month, and the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame has planned a weekend of events that pay tribute to our rich musical history. Among the highlights of the celebration is the renaming of Parkside Street in Detroit to David Ruffin Avenue. The Temptations lead singer lived on Parkside from 1970 until 1983. Also, the Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame will welcome its 2019 class of inductees during a black tie ceremony at the Charles H. Wright Museum. This is the 8th annual induction ceremony. Here to tell us more is R&B Hall of Fame founder Lamont Robinson, along with David Ruffin's daughter and Hall of Fame president Cheryl Ruffin Robinson, and the host of the weekend events, radio personality David Washington. Welcome all of you to American Black Journal.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so this is a big deal, the 8th annual induction.
Annual. Yeah, definitely. 5th here in Detroit, 8th overall, and we're looking forward to it every year. We get people from all over the country coming here to Detroit. You know, Detroit is such a musical hub.
Yes.
With Motown and everything, and we look forward to this, and we look forward to enshrining the new class of 2019 inductees.
Yeah, so tell us who some of the inductees are going to be.
Well, we are re-inducting Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul. She was inducted in 2015 as a singer. This year she's going in as a songwriter. Eddie Kendricks, the legendary tenor for the Temps, and also Stevie Wonder is being inducted. Phil Perry, Don Davis, who was the great producer. We have Stephanie Mills, H-Town, Guy. So we have a host.
Yeah, that's a real range right there.
Right, exactly.
Of wonderful artists.
Yes.
We had you on a few years ago, I feel like, to talk about last year? Talk about the hall. How is that all going?
Oh, the hall process is going good. We're talking with some corporate people about brick and mortar. You know,
it's like building the actual hall.
Building the actual Hall of Fame. We'll be one of three. You know, you have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame down the street here in Cleveland, in Cleveland. And then you have the Country Music Hall of Fame, and now the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame. So we're in talks now. We're down to like 3 locations. So it's looking very promising.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting day.
Oh,
we break ground on that here in the city of Detroit.
We will.
Yeah. So let's talk about renaming Parkside Street, which is a street that runs through the neighborhood where I live as well, in Detroit, as David Ruffin Avenue. That's a big deal.
Oh, a big deal. Well, myself, my family, I want to thank, first of all, the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, the city of Detroit, and me and my family. We're just so honored and so elated, and we can't wait.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
excited.
I feel like your dad is one of the most recognizable figures, not just in Detroit history, but in music history. I mean, there's almost nobody who doesn't recognize that name, or of course recognize that voice when you would hear it. But talk about living on Parkside. That's in University District neighborhood.
Yeah, we had good times, good birthdays, Christmases, friends on the street.
Yeah.
Just remember a lot of good times and good days.
Yeah. When you think about your dad, talk about how important the city of Detroit and being in the city of Detroit was to him.
He loved Detroit. He was a homebody. Well, the last 3 years he was working on Ruffin Kendrick's Edwards. And he was in Philadelphia where he passed. But Detroit was always his home. He lived here majority of his life.
So let's talk about the weekend of events. You are the host.
Yes, I'm one of the co-hosts, along with Mary Wilson and Spider Turner. And we have Nen Bailey, and we also have Miss Donna Wheelwright is going to be co-hosting the first half of the induction ceremony.
Okay.
And before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, especially our yearly sponsors. We have Mac Leasing, First Independence Bank, and we also like to say thanks to Quicken Loans and Burt's Entertainment Complex, and our annual supporter is Cadillac of Novi.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank them dearly.
Yeah.
And also like to thank all the fans and the public that have supported us over the last 8 years. And this year we have a nice class going in for 219. Aretha Franklin as a songwriter, Stevie Wonder as a performer, of course. We have H-Town, we have Guy coming in, Stephanie Mills, we have Ray Parker Jr., who's a Detroiter from heart.
Right.
The great Phil Perry, the legendary Don Davis, producer, songwriter, and owner of First Independence Bank.
Right.
We have another great guy, David Washington's being inducted. Myself, 47 years put into the industry.
That's right.
Keith Washington is being inducted. Producer Henry Cosby from Motown Records. The legendary Bumps Blackwell, who's responsible for bringing Sam Cooke to the secular world.
Yeah.
And also the real pioneer, true pioneer, Mr. Lloyd Price, is being inducted twice this year. As one is the Lifetime Achievement Award, receiving the Jackie Wilson prestigious award, and also as singer-songwriter, he's being awarded for that. We have Jimmy Roach, producer for Motown Records, The Times. Then we also have the Band of Gypsies, and we have the Rude Boys, who was produced by Gerald Levert out of Cleveland, Ohio, and we just added the Mary Jane Girls.
That's right.
From Motown Records.
Very good.
And going to be inducted. We're going to have just a great inductee this year. Inducted people, and we're so proud that everybody has been invited. We're going to have some performances by some of the artists, so it's going to be just a great year.
Talk about what goes on at the ceremony.
Well, we do the induction ceremonies, and then we induct the artists, and then they perform. We talk about the history of that artist. We talk about what they're doing today, and where they're going to go tomorrow. So it's more like a history lesson also.
That's
a
really
lot of
cool.
people have never had a chance to see some of these people live.
That's right.
Sometimes it's the first time they ever saw them live, so it's quite personal.
And the red carpet. We have the
we have the red carpet.
Have a red carpet.
Red carpet
Exactly.
at 4 o'clock. Yeah, we're going to start Sunday. Well, let's kind of backtrack a little bit. We're going to do the state of the Black Music Conference.
Which is
will
important.
Be, very important. We're going to talk about where music is, where it's going. That's going to be Friday morning at Burt's at 10:30 to 12, free to the public. Then we're going to go back and then rush down to Parkside at 2 o'clock. The next day we have
celebration at 6.
Yeah, and the next day we have the all-white party, which is a VIP party where we bring in the inductees. It's going to be at Burt's. It starts at 8 o'clock. And then that Sunday at 4 o'clock, the red carpet. But, kind of backtrack at 6 o'clock. After the 2 o'clock ceremony with David Ruffin, we're going to come back to Burt's at 6, which is free to the public. And we're going to play his music and then just joy David Ruffin and his life. And his family's going to be there.
Sure.
We got people coming from all over the country. And if you want to get tickets, you can go to Burt's and buy your tickets for all the events. And you can go to R&BHallOfFame.com and purchase them online. But we're looking for the support. Like I said, it's our 5th year here. This is probably the musical city. Well, one of the biggest musical cities in the world, especially for R&B music.
Definitely.
So,
and before we run out of time for the segment, I wanted to get you to talk just a little about the importance of preserving that music now. It's different than it was when David Ruffin was
Right.
still with us
20,
and still
30 years
performing.
ago.
But it's just as important. It's just a part of the city.
Well, just kind of capture that. Rhythm and blues music is the foundation to all
For
music.
everything, right.
If you go to different genres of music, they'll revert back to the gospel, jazz, R&B music, and it's a shame that a Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame hasn't already been re-erected, but God bless me to be able to do it. The city of Detroit has welcomed it for the last 5 years, and it's just so important that we protect the legacy of the artists as well as the music.
Yeah.
And God has put me in that position, and I plan to make that happen. I just thank, again, everybody that's just been hands-on with the situation there and the support.
All right. Well, congratulations to you all.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
look forward to the weekend of events.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, just ahead, a Juneteenth celebration at the Charles H. Wright Museum. But first, here's a 1986 Detroit Black Journal conversation with Mary Wilson about the early days of the Supremes.
We did a lot of record hops, sock hops. I'm sure you're not familiar with those terms now. But we did all of those things around Detroit, working at the 20 Grand, the Greystone ballrooms, until about 1963. So from 59 to 63, we were out there
And you all
working.
were known as the no-hit Supremes, and that's
Yeah.
hard to believe.
I thought they said you were kind. You're not being kind.
What about that?
Well, in fact, we were called the No-Hit Supremes by Martha and the Vandellas, the Marvelettes, the Temptations. We actually were one of the first girl groups there at Motown. And so other girl groups came, like the Marvelettes, Martha and the Vandellas, and they had hit records before we did. So although we were very good, people just, teased us behind our backs that we were the No-Hit Supremes, and we were. We had 11 flops. Now, I'm sure a lot of Detroiters heard those flops. People around the country did not, like Buttered Popcorn, that Florence sang lead on. I Want a Guy, I Want a Guy, shut up. Diane did that one. Breathtaking Guy. I mean, all kind of songs that were flops until 1964, when we had To Where Did Our Love Go.
The Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History is going to host a special Juneteenth celebration presented by award-winning bassist and Detroit native Robert Hurst. This Juneteenth concert is going to feature music that reflects the experiences and resilience of enslaved Africans and the highly anticipated day of emancipation in 1865. I'm pleased to have Robert Hurst here today, along with Charles Farrell of the Wright Museum. Welcome to American Black Journal.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a real honor, of course, to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Unbelievable career as a bassist, and for me personally, as somebody who kind of plays around with the bass, it's a big deal to have you sitting right here with me.
Right.
So let's talk about this musical celebration and the idea of reflecting those experiences of enslaved Africans on this sort of anticipated day that they would be free.
Well, I'm really happy to try to enlighten people on this wonderful day. It's not celebrated as much as it should be.
People don't know as much about it as they probably should.
I was doing a residency at Oberlin University a couple years ago, and they actually have a huge parade, on this day, and it was so great to see, people on floats and commemorating all of the events leading up.
It really, I think, depends on where you are in the country. I mean, in the South, I think it's got a little more recognition than it does in places like Detroit.
It does, yeah.
But it's something that everybody should know and understand.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
So talk about how the music will kind of reflect the mood of the day.
Well, it's kind of conceived from the memory of a very old slave, and originally when I wrote it, it was in two parts: June 18th. 1865 and June 19th, 1865, you know, one being the last day of slavery and then the first day of, metaphorically, the first day of freedom. And I've written a couple other movements that kind of invoked his memory of freedom in Africa. And then the last movement is about, you know, the freedom here in the United States, and then the middle movements are kind of about the rough patch in between, you know, of being enslaved and all that went into that.
Yeah, yeah. What were some of the influences that you drew on for the music?
Well, I remember reading this book by Charles Johnson, The Middle Passage, and it was just, that was the first time I'd seen something that kind of, even though it was a written work, it just, the visual images that this book portrayed were horrific. Yes. And I think I wanted to do something like that in music. Not that the music is very celebratory, but I think, you know, just in slavery in general, we always have this view of slavery being black people being downtrodden, which they were, and all of the negatives actually happened. But there have to be some beautiful stories. I mean, we wouldn't be here, right, you know, if there wasn't some great triumphant stories. So I try to look for those, and I want to keep working on that. You know, as I, you know, my artistic endeavors.
Sure, sure. Charles talked about the importance of Juneteenth historically, but also in the context of the Wright Museum.
Well, sure. You know, it's the 154th anniversary of Juneteenth, and it's an event we celebrate every year. This General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas on the 18th, and of course on the 19th, 250,000 enslaved Africans were freed. So it's really celebrating about 45 states around the United States. And as Bob rightly said, it should be celebrated more broadly. I really think it's important that we are celebrating Juneteenth with jazz. Jazz, to me, is you know, an art form that necessitates freedom. In fact, you know, the improvisational aspects of it, you know, our great jazz artist has always been at the forefront of this liberatory way of living life, particularly going to Europe and coming back. So to have someone with 7 Grammys, a tenured professor, leading a world-class group during the year that we actually are looking at the 400 years, right, from 1619 at August 20th in Jamestown to you know, 2019, our theme has been talking about resisting enslavement, fighting mass incarceration, but our struggle for human rights. And so music has always been integral with that struggle, you know, whether you look at any of our art forms. So this is a high experience for us to have Bob Hurst, whose father, incidentally, Bob can talk about that, is associated with the museum. And we've had a similar program with Quincy Troop and Will Downing looking at the Middle Passage. So it's a good way to end on a celebratory note with great, phenomenal music. We're asking the whole community to come out to fill our seats and help Bob celebrate Juneteenth here in Detroit.
As we were talking about before, I feel like this is something that a lot of people don't have almost any knowledge of, or if they do, it's kind of a passing knowledge. How do we get more people, especially in the North, to kind of recognize the importance of this day?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, major institutions bringing it to the fore, discussing it. You know, there's a strong need to propel black studies within educational systems. A lot of groups are working on that, particularly Carter G. Woodson's Association for the Study of African American Life and History is trying to promote the mandate that black studies is taught in all schools. But, you know, the whole story of the movement of African Americans fighting, you know, which was initially restricted in 1862, and said because Frederick Douglass made that announcement. But if you didn't have the 200,000 Africans fighting for the liberation, this whole union would not be, you know, we've actually made for a better union, a more perfect union by fighting for our liberation and freedom. And we have to continue to do that. And also not to think about those who are currently not free in our society, particularly the United States having the largest prison population, for example. Yeah, so, you know, let's continue to talk about freedom, to make certain people have freedom in every aspect of their basic rights. And I think, again, being able to bring the whole communities together under the rubric of music is very powerful.
Talk about your dad's affiliation with the museum. Cheryl's made reference to that.
Yeah, they have the Robert Hurst Research library, and it was dedicated to my father and in memory of my father, who was the first African American president of Michigan Bell here in Detroit, and you know, he's a great man to me, but it's so wonderful to see him celebrated by everyone else. You know, I celebrate him every day. So.
Talk about how you became a bassist and how music came to be the thing that you decided you wanted to devote your life to.
Yeah, well, coming up in Detroit, there's always great music everywhere, you know, and my parents were wonderful parents. Our wonderful parents, and they took me to see, you know, music. So, all kinds of music, local music. But one summer, I remember they took me and my cousins to see the Jackson 5. And that next Christmas, all my cousins, all my male cousins, we got guitars, and so I was the one that kind of stuck with it. And my parents, once I started playing, they said, "Well, you got to take lessons if you play. You just can't have this guitar. You know, we've spent too much money on it."
That's
so,
right. You can't mess around with it.
So I started on guitar, and then eventually I was really attracted to the bass guitar. You know, and being from Detroit, there's the great James Jamerson, who's the godfather of bass. You know, that turned the world on its ear. You know, I heard all of that music growing up, you know, Motown music, and I was just really enamored with it. So I started playing the bass, and the bass found me.
Right. And of course, it is such an instrumental part of jazz. I mean, there's so much power in jazz, I feel like, because of that bass, which, you know, a lot of people feel like, you know, it belongs in an orchestra, and it can be. But I feel like it plays a special role in that music.
It does. You know, black folks love the bass, but everybody loves the bass. So you know, I mean, whether they know it or not, you know, because that's what makes everybody's butt shake. So.
Yeah, right. That's right. It's the bottom, right? All right. Well, congratulations on the work.
Thank you so much.
And we'll look forward to the celebration.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. You can go to AmericanBlackJournal.org for more information on our guests, and you can always connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you next time.